Hello, everybody. Today is the day, the long-awaited day. Woohoo! So this book is now up for sale. And you know, I have been working my ass off, gone through so much rigmarole that this is amazing. Like, seriously amazing. And I'm just going to do a hello here. See what's going on. All right, I see everybody coming through. Now, I may not be able to see any comments because of the way Facebook is, but so the publisher is Lulu Publishing. Okay, Lulu Publishing is the publisher. And you see, let's see, wow. Here we go, 5 comments, okay. And you see that it's going to be on the website. I'm not going to do it right now, but you guys have now first crack at it. Anyone that's on here right now will have first crack at the book. And it's all just in time. There's no pre-order. Okay, it looks like it's like 3 to 5 days. And it's through the site. And then you just put in, all of your information, and then they send it to you. Okay, the ebook is $9.99. And right now, it's only available through Lulu, okay? And like Kindle and Kobo and I think is Amazon same thing as Kindle, like iBooks or Google Play and all of that stuff, that will be available from like 6 to 8 weeks because they have to go through their content or content evaluation, okay? So just sit on that. You'll see the other avenues when it comes about, and I'll know, and I'll let you know. All right, so right now, Lulu's the only one that can do the ebook. All right, so there is that. And then we're also having a launch of the new Healing Salt store. Now, it is healingsalt.co, not .com, healingsalt.co. And that's going to have a promotional item that will only be available for 72 hours. And that's the mug and the t-shirt. And it's going to be really cool. So you take a look at that. The mug and the t-shirt are going to be only available for 72 hours. And then you will get your t-shirts once you purchase and the mug 3 weeks from August 29th. Because it's all custom made to order and everything. Okay. So, so you can pre-order those, and that's through a very trusted person that I'm working with. And so, and then also Lisa's Holistic Bath Items, Lisa Morissette, she creates really awesome bath products that are very, very, very natural and they last a long time, and they're pretty, and they smell good, and all that stuff. And so she has a bunch of different packages that are available, and they're very limited. So feel free and check those out. But I know the big thing is this book, okay? This book, what I'm trying to do is change the world with this book. I'm trying to change history. I'm trying to revolutionize health in a way that we've never seen before. So with that said, you've all heard that those who don't know their history are doomed to repeat it, right? Right. And so I was thinking, like, what am I going to talk about today that's going to make any kind of difference for anybody? Why they should buy this book or why they should even look at this protocol. And so I was thinking, like, how many generations do we have right now that are living? Well, there's only about 6 different generations. But then I'm thinking, like, wait, hold on a second. Let's go further back in time. What were they doing health-wise back in the 1800s, back in the King Louis, the Henry VIII, in Europe, because everything started in Europe, you know, as far as all this health revolution, all these modern medicine and techniques, it all kind of came from Europe. And then it eventually, you know, America came about because we want to be independent from the crown. But everything kind of came from Europe. So I was Googling this morning because I didn't really know what I was going to talk about this morning or yesterday about what I was going to talk about this morning. So I just got up at 6 a.m., didn't really do much preparation. I kind of knew that I was talking about 6 different generations, but, you know, I mean, what do you say about those, right? So I did some Google and did some research, and then I'm like, you know, hold on a second. Let me just take a look at some stuff here. So I started using Google, which everyone should. And I'm looking at, you know, when did Henry VIII die? Like, not when, but like, how long did he live? What was his age, right? And Henry VIII, his reign lasted for like 38 years, from like April 1509 until January 1547. So he ruled for, you know, 37 years and 9 months. And then he was born in 1491, and then he died in 1547. So you know what he died from? Syphilis. He died in 1547 from syphilis. So he was only 56 years old. That's pretty young. How many 56-year-olds do you know? Right? And then who dies from syphilis nowadays, right? We have so much stuff nowadays that even just the herbs and antibiotics that we have wouldn't allow someone to die from syphilis, okay? So back then, they didn't have much in the way of remedies to help somebody prolong their life so they're not going to die from something like syphilis, right? Which is like a virus or bacteria. And then I'm looking at, okay, Louis XIV, Louis the 14th, I think that's what it is, 14 XIV, yeah. Known as Louis the Great, the Sun King, was a monarch of the House of Bourbon who reigned as King of France from 1643 until his death in 1715. So he was the longest reigning guy. He's reigned for 72 years. So he was like 4 years old when he was king. And guess what he died of? And he was 76 years old, which was pretty interesting, which means that, you know, medicine was taken off a little bit. So I'm sure he had access to herbs. But guess what he died of? Gangrene. And he was 76 years old. And back in the 1700s, they were amputating gangrene because 1700s, 1800s, you know, that was a time, I think, was the Civil War. They were amputating people for gangrene and for all those different injuries from war and stuff. But I don't think he wanted to get his arm amputated because that's a lot of pain. And so he just died from gangrene, but it's amazing that he lived to be 76 years old. So obviously something was going on during that day that he had access to better food or some of the herbs that were around at the time, so that way he didn't have to die of syphilis, right? So there was some, you know, modernization of medicine that was going on. All right. And then, okay. Andrew Jackson. Then I'm looking at Andrew Jackson. I was listening to a YouTube video of Andrew Jackson. And I was listening to just what he went through as, you know, before he became president. And he was a frontiersman. So he wasn't from a man of privilege, right? He you know, his parents came from Europe, and then they all settled in America. And this was, you know, in he was born in 1767. So this is before, you know, 1776 was when America was born. So this is before America became to be. And so he came out here as a frontiersman, still dealing with the British, right? You know, and I think him and his brother were in jail as boys. And then his dad died at 29. And so his mom was raising them. And then his mom died after she saved them from a prison camp. And they were both suffering from smallpox, which is interesting that he was suffering from smallpox right in that prison camp. And then he was the guy that did the Trail of Tears, where the Cherokees were all dying from smallpox. I think that's what happened. So That's interesting. So anyways, so his brother died of smallpox on their way back home when they were riding from the prison camp 40 miles because his mother saved him because she went and requested audience to the prison camp people, and then they let him go. And so the brother died, and then he was nursed back to health, and then she died, not too long thereafter. She died from cholera, right? And so, of course, a little bit of history about Andrew Jackson, what he went through. He's a president and all that stuff, to the Trail of Tears and the whole Indian and all that Indian wars and everything. And he died at 78 years old. So he was a man of privilege at some point, but his parents were frontiersmen and he was a man of privilege. And then he died from edema, tuberculosis, and that's what it is. Right, edema and tuberculosis. So these are the things that, medicine back then, or anything, was able to prolong his life past 78. But that's interesting, he lived to be 78. So that's much better than Henry VIII, that was 56, right? Died at 56. And then around that time, I was reading about, medicine in the 1800s, and I saw this little blurb that kind of caught my eye. And this little blurb: as American doctors moved to prove themselves through their heroic therapies, European doctors were moving into the opposite direction by drawing on specific scientific methods. Laboratory studies had begun to extract the key ingredients of herbal remedies such as quinine from the cinchona bark that was one of the very few curative remedies available for malaria. So Europe was really, really, on the forefront, obviously, because a lot of this stuff came from Europe, of remedies and medicine and just all of this scientific research. And then this little thing that right afterwards, which kind of just struck me as interesting, Americans rejected both the science and the idea of moderation. Even the most forward-looking physician in America, Oliver Wendell Holmes, the father of the future Supreme Court, a proponent of clean hands, ridiculed the idea that science could have had any practical value for the medical profession. In the absence of verifiable cures, doctors who wanted to follow the European trends to let nature heal were accused of the therapeutic nihilism that could destroy them as a profession. Americans, the orthodox, argued, were superior and did not have to follow the practices of their weak European forebears. Oh, that is so telling right now. Okay, let me go back here. That is so telling at this point. Right now, Americans, not all of them, but my American, my government, the AMA, the ADA, all the different, people who are high level doctors and PhDers are like, poo-pooing what I'm saying, because they know better, right? This seems to be a repeat in history. What I'm putting out there is based in science, is being poo-pooed by BuzzFeed, by that woman Nita who is like, graduated from MIT. MIT, right? Isn't that supposed to be like some prestigious place? And then she's poo-pooing this information, right? I mean, what else? Newsweek? All these different American, journalists are going like, oh, we don't look at science as anything. We're poo-pooing anything that's related to science. It's exactly what's going on. We're repeating history right now. And what I've dealt with is exactly what they dealt with back in the 1800s. Okay? So this is like completely interesting to me. I'm like, oh my God, I'm seeing a pattern here. Okay, I'm seeing a pattern here. So then I'm looking at, oh wow, Queen Elizabeth. I have to Google Queen Elizabeth. The Queen Mother, Buckingham, announced today that Queen Mother died peacefully. Well, it's not peacefully, okay, at 3:15 this afternoon at the age of 101. So somehow Europe was able to keep the Queen, okay, the Queen Mum, alive for 101 years. And of course, Queen Elizabeth today, who's still living, she's still kicking. However, the Queen Mum didn't just die peacefully in her sleep from like old age and like, death is not peaceful, okay? She was suffering from a bad cough and a chest infection. And then her condition deteriorated this morning and her doctors were called. Well, the morning that she died. So yes, medicine back in the 1800s in Europe, as well as today, could prolong your life if applied correctly for maybe 50 more years relative to, you know, how much access to resources you have. So obviously, the Queen Mom and Queen Elizabeth and the Rockefellers and all these guys that, you know, are people of privilege may have access to a few modern techniques that are allowing them to prolong their life longer than the average Joe in the poor areas, right? But they're still dying and they're still aging. So then I'm like, okay, so here we go. So now we're seeing that, okay, so, you know, Henry VIII died at 56 and Louis died at like 78. And then, you know, we have Andrew Jackson died at 78 or something like that, right? But his parents died between like, you know, 30 and then not too long after that, maybe in 40, right? And then we have Queen Elizabeth who dies, you know, the Queen Mom dies at age 101. And then I'm like, now we're back into America again. Steve Jobs, right? He's an American frontiersman on the technology forefront, right? He's an American entrepreneur. And then guess what? He dies from pancreatic cancer at age 56. How can that be when we're on this age of information? We have all these different, you know, discoveries, allegedly, right? And I'm like, oh, whoa, wait, hold on a second. We're going back in time again. Now we're regressing because those who don't know their history are doomed to repeat it. So Americans back in the 1800s, when Europe was way ahead of them when it comes to modern medicine, were rejecting the fact of using Mother Nature to help them out. And again, we're looking at Europe still being ahead of Americans in the healthcare area. And so we're seeing now Steve Jobs dying from pancreatic cancer at age 56. So are American entrepreneurs, American frontiersmen, are they, you know, American frontiersmen battling the conditions? Yeah, they are. So then I'm like, okay, now we have the 6 living generations and we are regressing health-wise, okay? We really are. And I'm just gonna check something out here real quick. It's nice to see all of you guys, it really is. How do I see all these comments? But I don't see all these comments. Hold on, let me see. I'm just checking out to see. Oh, here we go. Wow, okay. It stopped at one area. Hi from Europe. Hey, Shirley. Hey, everybody. Okay. I'm looking at this other page right now because I'm going to go through this. So I found this website. And it's called The 6 Living Generations. And I'll put it on here. So that way you guys can read it. Copy. And this kind of just what's going on as far as the growth of a nation and what is, you know, I would say what has contributed to, well, not so much contributed, just seeing where we are at with these different generations, because each generation is like, obviously, they only live so long and then they die, right? And I'm trying to say now, so my whole point of why I'm focusing on this whole generational thing is I want to have one generation where, fine, if those other generations choose to die, if they don't do my protocol, that's fine. But there's going to be a generation, whoever it is, whether they're from the generation X, Y, Z, or generation GI, you know, one from each or a bunch of them finally come together and create the one generation that will not die off. But for us to even get to this point, we have to look at what happened in history so we can learn from history so we don't repeat it. Because right now we're repeating history. Okay? We're regressing. So let's just take a look at what's going on with these generations. So we have the GI generation, 1901 to 1926, right? And this is establishing the power strongholds and developing an infrastructure and culture and boundary lines, you know, in America. This is all from the American perspective. So much like the Revolutionary War. So this is, World War II and World War I, and this is where where the whole world's at war, and finally, we're establishing all the different boundary lines. Each country is going to fight for, whatever, and one country may take over and whatever, right? And that's what was going on in that generation. And I don't have a lot of notes on that, but I'll kind of read a few things on that. That's the GI generation, right? So these are children of the World War I generation, fighters of the World War II, young in the Great Depression, right? So this is like my grandparents. They're all leading to strong models of teamwork. I mean, I think, yeah, my grandparents. Yeah, because my parents are the mature silence. So this is my grandma, right? And I don't know my grandma very well. I met her when I was younger, and she had this strong New York accent. And, of course, in the Depression age, there's always hoarding stuff, right? I mean, I didn't see her when she was hoarding, but I heard about some of the hoarding stuff. And really, felt like she wasn't given a fair shake. Divorced grandpa, they were divorced. So she lived on her own, and my parents were helping take care of her. I mean, all the sisters, my parents and their sisters were helping to take care of her. But I mean, they're community minded, strong sense of personal civic duty. I mean, they vote, married for life, divorce and having children out of wedlock was never accepted, strong loyalty to jobs. So this is where you stayed at jobs forever and ever. There was no retirement. You worked until you died. This is when the labor unions were spawning generations, right? So, and this is the age of radio. And these were, this is where they were coming out of that major world war, and they were just trying to figure out how to get a good foothold and just have that strong work ethic and really just adhere to the infrastructure that was being created. Because who wants to live in chaos, right? Because war is chaos. War is death. Externally out there, war is death. So I can see where, that's why they're so community minded. That's why they're so, in personal morality, because they want to be able to survive all that hell they went through dealing with all those 2 different wars, right? That's crazy. So, and so I didn't really, I didn't know her in my older age, so I wasn't really able to talk with her. And she died from breast cancer. She died. I mean, and that sucks, because that's a generation that really could offer some insight on how we can fix the mistakes that we're making today. But we're seeing that generation die. Now, we can only hopefully get some of what they learned or what they were able to offer as wisdom from their kids, if the kids even listened to them, if the kids even kind of adopted some of their morals and values, right? My parents were, they did learn a lot from their parents, and probably went a different direction too, health-wise, because, I'm sure, yeah, cancer, disease, and chronic illness was prevalent back then as well, because they were, these are Americans. Americans know everything, right? They don't listen to anybody out there that may have something revolutionary. So they stick with what they know, and then they have a predictable life, right? So then the next generation, which is the mature silent, my parents' generation. Okay, and what notes do I have on that? So my parents' generation, right, who really should be living. They should be living a long time, because now they've learned from their parents, right, about infrastructure and culture and boundary lines and community and really keeping a good order, because order equals life. Death is chaos, and war is death. War is chaos. So they're learning from their parents' generation, right? So mature silence, this is, these are my parents' generation. They're tail end of the World War II. So that's when Pearl Harbor happened in 1941. America becomes the melting pot, and immigrant from other countries come here, and then the culture clashes, and then the power dynamic gets established. And the powers that be, which is the government, is trying to figure out how to control and direct the people through music, war, and activism, right? So again, we're now going through another change, a transition of coming off the heels of all these wars. Then I think Vietnam happened somewhere in their lifetime. And, what are things that generation, the mature silence, they avid readers. I mean, they still believe in community And then, of course, the civil rights, right? Because we're having culture clashes and we're having black and white issues because we're bringing everybody here. And we know back in, what, 1800s, we had the Civil War. So we finally got away from slavery. And now we're trying to figure out how can we cohabitate as a nation and get rid of some of the past issues and traumas that happened way back then. So then women are trying to figure out how to get into the workforce. And then, this is where money was prevalent. And, money was a bit more prevalent. There wasn't too much corruption that we know about back then. To them, let's see. I mean, it's my parents. I mean, big band, swing generation, strong sense of transgenerational common values, near absolute truths, right, which is, yeah. So trying to give them information about this is a little bit harder because they do have a certain, I don't know, convictions about what they believe in. And it's very hard to get them away from their belief system because of what they went through those years. So, and then what they went through, formative years of suffering from conformity, suffocating from conformity. So yeah, peace. So the whole thing is peace, jobs, suburbs, and television, rock and roll, Playboy magazine, all of that, right? So it was just kind of like this sexual revolution, all these different revolutions that came from finally, there's no more war. We can kind of sit and be with ourselves and deal with whatever, create a life and a family and create stuff. But then we still got to figure out social mores and social, societal, I guess, how do you get along together, right? How do you play in the sandbox together? And then how do you make money and how do you have a great future? And then, of course, right now, these mature silents are also dying. Actually, it's interesting now. I mean, their lifespan is like around, I would say, between 60 and 80. Okay, so they're dying off, and they have a lot to offer and keep them alive long enough. My parents created me, right? This is who created this protocol in a lot of ways. Bootstrap mentality. You work for what you get. Nothing is given to you, right? You work hard. You sink or swim. There is no hand holding. And then, there's a lot of, controversy, a lot of stress that goes along with that, but stress and hardship and, hard knocks in life create, creativity. It creates something. And you've seen the artists out there. Like I was listening to the Eagles documentary, and their best work came out of their relationships that were under a lot of stress. When they were fighting amongst each other was when they had the best artistic work, right? And then that's when new ideas happen. So, they taught me that, hey, you got to sink or swim. We can't hold your hand for the rest of your life. We can't be giving you money left and right, so you'll never learn anything. They taught me to learn from your mistakes, learn from your predecessors, which I took those values and applied them to this protocol and to my own life. You make what you want in life. Because, when I was really, when I wasn't sure where I was going and I really wanted just to cling to my parents and cling to them because there was a safety, that wasn't allowed. I couldn't just cling to that, because what would I do? Be clinging them forever? For them to finance the rest of my life so I have nothing to show for it? So I don't create anything of my own and living off of them. No, they want me to develop myself, develop an individual style that's going to be unique amongst the masses. So I learned a lot from my parents, who learned a lot from their parents. And so my parents have a lot to offer as far as, just that generation is a lot to offer these kids today who are being given everything left and right, never being held accountable for their mistakes. And then they're now totally just horrible to be around sometimes. Totally entitled, self-centered, okay? So it's like we can't lose the mature silent generation because they were so bootstrap. And so work hard for what you get. I mean, my husband, he works hard. He learned from his parents who learned from his parents, right? That you work hard, you make something of yourself. You're probably going to work till you die. I mean, my husband's mentality is work until you die. He doesn't look at retirement. Me, I was like, when him and I first got together, we were trying to figure out our philosophies in life. And mine was like, save money until retirement, right? Then you have a nice little nest egg, thinking I was going to die at some point, right? And he was like, no, spend every dime, enjoy everything. I'm like, I can't do that, right? But that was the mentality back then, or what he grew up with, was the fact that you spend everything because you're going to die one day, so you might as well enjoy it while you have it, because you can't take it with you. So that's the mentality that I learned, and from my parents, and who learned from their parents or my grandparents. So the next one is the baby boomers, right? They're the ones, finally, our country, America's at peace, money and careers. Yeah, we have a few things like terrorism stuff, but I'm not even going to go to the foreign policy. But I mean, they have time to enjoy their retirement, if they're not battling cancer, disease, and chronic illness. They actually are their aging will change America almost incomprehensible. They're the first generation to use the word retirement to mean being able to enjoy life after the children have left the house. So assuming you're not dying from cancer, disease, and chronic illness, this generation can totally have an awesome lifestyle, because they have all the modern conveniences. Travel is great. Most of the countries out there are pretty safe to go to. We're seeing technology and things, advance at a faster level. And so why, now at this point, these baby boomers I'm seeing are obese, overweight. I don't see them enjoying their retirement. I don't. I see them retiring. As soon as they retire, guess what? In the next 5 or 6 years, all of a sudden something's going to happen. That's what I see for the baby boomers now. So right now they're enjoying their life while they're working. And then once they retire, it's going to be a death process. Okay. And so really now, now these baby boomers, they may learn a little bit from their parents, but they're still kind of trying to, straddling between current today and the past. And their parents are going to die, and all of that knowledge and all of that stuff is going to die with the parents. And now these kids are going to then, who are now baby boomers, and they're on their way to their death, but they're just going to accept death. And as soon as they're able to retire, they're going to pass away, because they're not looking at taking in new information if they are not doing my protocol. Okay. So that's the baby boomer generation. And all right, and then we have my generation, right? And this is my generation. Like, this is a person like me, individualistic, nomadic. We can't have sex without, consequences, because AIDS was first introduced. The drug culture, a lot of drugs, individual rights, and conspiracy community, and hates authority, right? So this is the generation that I was raised in. And this is what created this protocol, because tired of authority, yes, I bought into the conspiracy stuff and wanting to find something individual away from what everyone else is doing. And so, Generation X seems to be like the movers and shakers. And so this is almost like a culmination. Like, my generation is like a culmination of everything that we've ever were taught, right? From my grandparents. So I have knowledge just from my own parents and them being alive of what it means to work hard, what it means to study, what it means to be individual and think for yourself, what it means to also straddle the line of listening to authority when you need to, and when it doesn't make sense to listen to authority, to where we can actually differentiate and not make everything so black and white, to where it's like, okay, authority is good in this area, but authority in this area, like health and wellness, I think I'm going to have to say no, but I will make sure I only drive, 30 miles per hour in a speed zone that's 30 miles per hour. I will make sure I don't steal or lie or do anything like, embezzling, follow those type of laws. But when it comes to my health and my body and there's authority attached to that, I'm going to say, you know what? I'm going to exercise my individual right to think for myself. And that's where the conspiracy community comes in as well. So the Generation X is a combination of everything, of a mixed match of all the past up to today, right? And I'm thinking this is probably Generation X is the turning point generation. You only have two directions from this point forward, okay? You're only going to have one way, which is follow authority and 100% to a T, don't question anything, which are the millennials right now. They're hand-holding conformists who respect authority and have much academic pressure. So we're regressing. We're now going to go back to not knowing anything and only listening to somebody else who has, who thinks they have our best interest at heart, not taking account that we know what's best for ourselves once we have the information. So Generation Y is going to be, in that direction. So right now I'm seeing my Generation Xers are dying right now. They're dying, or they're playing that game of following, conforming on some level. Those, that are stuck in the higher yuppie, areas and whatever, right? And then others that are like, okay, well, I can't fit into that model, so I'm gonna create my own model. But sometimes it's still mainstream, but they just create another area for those guys that can't play that game, but they can play this game, but still stay within the system. So anyway, so Generation X really is like a turning point. You're going to go left or you're going to go right. And it almost is like black and white. So I think for me, my generation, this is where the choices that you make are going to obviously determine your future. And you have only two choices. This is where it does get black and white, life or death, okay? Because now we're looking at Generation Y, which is the millennials, and then the boomlets, which are the kids right now, that the tweens and the 8 or 9, 8 to 12-year-olds. Those are the ones that are going to be going right or left, one of those two. So from this point forward, we now have two choices, life or death. Okay, so I know this is a little bit verbose, but I wanted to kind of just study the different generations so we can see what created who we are today and what created me. Because now that we know what history has given us, and that was a very short blurb of history when it comes to the health and wellness side of it, now we have an opportunity to pick a direction. Okay, we can go with, we can go with just listening to authority, not questioning, and living a very, formulaic lifestyle. Or we can go in another direction and say, hey, we can listen to authority, so as long as the authority isn't harming us in our bodies, that we can find a way to straddle both worlds. We don't have to necessarily leave the matrix and be an off-gridder and then go back to being a frontiersman where you're going to die at age 30, because that's what I see with these off-gridders, is that they're not do this protocol, right? Because they're not going to have access to the amount of salt, right? Because where are you going to mine salt from, right? They're not going to have access to jars. They might have access to jars. And, water, maybe, obviously water. But then, cabbage, yeah, they'll grow cabbage, but are they going to ferment? And how are you going to get all that salt? They're going to have to not really be an off-gridder. They're going to have to go and buy salt on the market, which means that you're going to have to go into town and go buy salt. But how much, salt can you get when you're in town, right? Then you have to go online to get bulk salt, because you'll be paying out the ass for little individual salts that you get like at Walmart if you're like an off-gridder in a rural area, like let's say Oklahoma. So there is no off-gridding nowadays if you, truly, because do you really want to be an off-gridder and live that kind of very predictable life like Andrew Jackson's parents, living to be age 40 and age 30, maybe age 50? Okay, so now we have the opportunity to be able to to take all of that good information from all those different generations and create the best generation, which is Generation Jilly Juice. Like seriously, Generation Jilly Juice. Because this will give you the opportunity to release those monkeys off your back, the candida. Because my first book talks about candida, which is the underlying cause of all cancer, disease, and chronic illness. And it's also used as a carrier point for different viruses, because the different virus microbes will dock to candida, and that's why you have specific cancers like ovarian cancer, cervical cancer. All the named cancers are yeast with a docked protein of a virus driving it. So this book here is not only going to reverse that, possibly, if you understand the concepts, but it's also going to help reverse the aging process, because death is cell degradation. When you're doing a massive cellular regeneration with cabbage, water, and salt, you're not going to have a major cell degradation. You're going to be regenerating cells faster than you're degrading them, which means that, hey, you may not die. Potentially, you will not die. And so that's this whole point of this, is now I want to have a generation of Jilly Juice. So it doesn't matter which generation you came from. You adopt this, you will now belong to Jilly Juice generation, because you're not going to have a generation. I mean, this is going to be the only generation. I am guessing this is going to be the only generation that is going to outlive all the other generations, because we're seeing we have 6 different generations, and we're seeing a succession that the oldest generation is going to die off, the next one, and the next one. We're going to be the only generation that's going to watch all of those generations. We're going to watch the X. We're going to watch Generation Y, and they'll call themselves after Generation Y, we'll have other kids in Generation Z, and then after Z, then I don't know what after Z is. I mean, are they going to sterilize all the Generation Zers, right, where they can't have kids? So this is huge. And it's going to be hard to see what it's going to be like in the future. But right now, as it stands, we need to have everybody internally balanced. Finally, we're at a place where everything is peaceful. This is where people who are like, all into this activism and wanting to just start a war because they're so pissed off at the government for what, I don't know. Yeah, there's things that are going on, but you can't help that. But you look outside on your street and you see there's no chaos in your street. There's no chaos in your neighborhood. If you're in a chaotic neighborhood, then move. Okay? Now is the time for those of you who are not in a chaotic situation to sit back, relax, take inventory of your life, look at where you want to go, and you see that there's a possibility. Because I have in here, these are the chapters. I have the introduction, I have preface, acknowledgments, prologue, introduction. Then I have intentionality and specific measurable results, antibiotic lifestyle, the Jilly Juice recipe, how to implement and what to expect with healing symptoms, so you understand how that works. The diet, and I explain everything about the diet. Then the major or minor organ transplants, missing organs, and miscellaneous foreign objects and implants. Talk about that. Babies, plants, and animals. Maintenance status. How do you know when you're through initially healing, and what I went through, similar to others. The types of people who do my protocol, and is this appropriate for you? And there's a few testimonies, not a lot, but there's a few. And then there's a reference list, and there's 2 chapter 12s in that first one. And then I have the science, the bonus section. I don't have all of the copied and pasted material from when I submitted to the OAG, because you can only have like a certain percentage of insight text before it becomes plagiarism. So I could only copy and paste just a few sentences from the actual periodicals, but I do have the reference list attached in here. So you can see where all my information came from. Then I have a graphic representation of homeostasis, interruptus, death versus life, and I have a bibliography. Okay, so, and this book also tells you how to then register to the discussion forum. Now I'm going to use my Facebook as a place to support you with this book, because that was the original intent when I had that 60,000 person group, was I would have my first book, which was released inadvertently. Well, not inadvertently, it was intentionally released through some drama, but we got through that. But I was going to use my first book as a guide for people to read and understand where I'm coming from. And then I was going to use that group as a way to help support the people that want to understand this. I was not anticipating that I was going to get attacked. Absolutely not. I was not anticipating that at all. And so finally, after, after being, having that group open for a while and getting feedback and then having some discoveries, and, I then created this book, The Jilly Juice Protocol. And so this really is a community book that was created by everybody in that group. All the stuff that I learned and realized, it was about the energy, the back and forth, the good and the bad energy that created this book. My first book was just my own thought process based upon making the connections. And that's in the website. And that's going to be downloadable for everybody to download on their own. You don't have to email us to get the first book. That is open to the public. So is the science with all of the data, okay, that I had to redact in this. And then when upon receipt of this book, when you guys buy the book, you're going to send us an email, and then Lily or myself, depends on how how bogged down Lily gets with all the emails, we'll then give you a login and password, and then we'll make sure that if there's anything nefarious, like any trolls or anyone that's naysaying, they will be deleted permanently. And it's going to happen. But that will be a place, for anonymous. But my Facebook is going to be a place for anyone that's not worried about being targeted and that has their page locked down. They don't, they know how to protect themselves from people who are going to call their house or try to turn them into CPS or turn them into their SPCA or whatever, because they're giving my protocol to a dog or an animal or a baby or whatever, right? So Facebook is a place where everybody kind of knows who you are. So unless, you're completely anonymous and you're protected, just register at my website, okay, and get an anonymous name and then ask questions in there. And there's gonna be a lot of people in there, and any new topic I'll answer, okay? So if you tag on to somebody else's topic, let's say if I don't subscribe to every single topic that's on there, but if you create a new topic, then I'll answer it. And then you can also, in the website, you can search, put in the search box, how long does this last, or how long does ferment last? That's how you can find the answers too. Okay, but I will answer questions, so will Lillian, and so will other people in the website. And then if you're on my Facebook, then that's great. If the thing with the private message, I will answer certain questions on private message, but I think I'll answer one question, but I'm not going to go back and forth, where it's like, like a consultation. I'm not doing any consultations, and I'm not going to go back and forth with people. It's like, if, I would rather answer questions. If you have a question, then I can then post the answer like on a video on Facebook, and I've been doing that. If you ask me a question I think everyone should know, not just this one person, then I'll do a video about it, okay? So that's how I'm going to kind of conduct my personal Facebook. And then my fan page, well, that's a place where all the trolls go and just get all of their, their aggression out, because they need a place to go and vent where they think they can get to me, which that's fine. Everybody needs a place to go and vent to someone they think is hurting them. Okay, fine. But I'm not hurting anybody. And then YouTube is just, I'm going to, download videos to YouTube. So what I plan to do for the next month is to do a video a day on a specific subject matter, on who would get benefit and why, and then anything else, okay? So, but I want, this is going to be at least your Bible, to at least have you understand, okay? And then also give this to some friends and family that, that aren't on Facebook or social media, or that need to be woken up a little bit, because this really, what did I put? Show them the videos, Dr. Phil. And, what else? Yeah, I mean, I talk about, like in my introduction, I talk about exposing the allopathic and the holistic industry. So it's, yeah. So anyways, I urge you guys just to get this, just to even just initially wake people up, and then the books that are going to come thereafter are just going to expand and expound upon my thought process. So this was expounded upon my first book. My first book was the initial thought process. This was all the research from all the feedback, and then my own, like, oh my gosh, my own revelations that I created from all the stress. You realize that stress creates creativity. I remember when I was, when I was drawing pictures because I was so stressed, there were some really awesome pictures and paintings and things that I did back, when I was in my 20s and 30s, right? I don't do too much drawing or art anymore because I have nothing to release. But I did create this. So now we got to figure out, okay, what other kinds of art can we create from a perfect 100% functioning body? What's available? I still think that we can have amazing art and amazing things, from 100% perfect functioning bodies. So this is just, a new frontier. We're on a new frontier. This is the new revolution, which is taking control of our bodies individually, not following somebody else's idea of what's good based upon their business model. Because this business model that I have, 1995, this is all you're going to pay to get your health 100% is 1995, and then unlimited support. That's it. There is no pills, powders, supplements. I'm not aging. Okay, so be very careful of who it is that you listen to out there in the matrix when they're aging, because I have mentioned here, actually the last chapter in here. Oh no, that's pain regrowth. The second to last chapter, or the last section, is about reversing the aging process. Chapter 20, the aging process. But I mean, I could have introduced this book saying, oh, I can reverse the aging process, I can do this. No, I mean, I'm going to talk about what it all comes down from, what everything stems from. It's from candida, it's from fungus, it's from virus microbes, it's from a malfunctioning immunocompromised body. Okay? I mean, that's my whole foundation and platform, is to find that common thing that everybody is dealing with and then knock it out and then understand universally that we're all the same. There is no difference at all between us, except for the fact that I'm a woman, you're a man, and maybe we come from different parts of the country. So go to jillyjuice.com, JILLYJUICE.com. I'm going to be posting the links on there, and that is the place where you're going to register, or you don't even have to register, just send us an email with the receipt. Or if you do register and you buy the book and you get that immediate receipt, then we'll look for your email address, and then and then we'll find your name, and then we'll activate your account and give you a password. We'll email you a password and tell you how to log in. Okay, so healingsalt.co, okay, which is a store that has the t-shirts and the mugs, and then those are pre-order. And then there's also Lisa's holistic bath products, and that has a certain turnaround time, and is being shipped from Canada. So it may take a few days for that, but you can email the admin over there on that website if you have any questions. But so yeah, I mean, I'm excited. I'm really, really happy finally this day has come, because I remember when my first book, I thought I was going to release it, and I was like, then I was going to go to another publisher that really got me into some hot water. Not them, but just the name of it got everyone all freaked out, and that's where the backlash came from, which is good though. So everything that led up to today was all for the best, because I wouldn't have been able to substantiate everything if it wasn't for somebody calling the OAG. I would have done all that research about, you know, everything, regrowing bones and reversing the aging process and the whole thing with RH and then the reproductive system. And then, you know, talking about, hey, if you're bearing babies, and our society is bearing babies left and right because we're immunocompromised, we're on a trajectory of death, reproduction comes from death. I mean, all of these revelations that I have been encountering is based upon the stress of getting this out. So there's something to be said for dealing with the healing symptoms with this protocol, because during this process, you're going to be facing a lot of your past, a lot of your physiological health issues from your past. I mean, I was listening to that YouTube video with Andrew Jackson, and how he was 46 years old and his health was declining because all of the injuries, like from him getting shot in the heart, not in the heart, but shot in the chest, 2 inches from his heart, from a duel, and then from getting, you know, a knife was to his face from a British soldier, and then some other injuries. Those were all coming to surface as he was aging. He was 46. I'm 44. I can only imagine, yeah, in a couple of years, if I hadn't done this protocol, I would be feeling all of those issues coming to surface. Okay, and that's why you're seeing now, you know, all these people right now who are in the matrix, not doing the protocol, coming down with all of these crazy diseases, diabetes, you know, autoimmune disorders, to obesity, you know, who knows what, some other type of emergency type of reaction that caused them to go to the hospital, heart attacks. Okay, so I don't know what Andrew Jackson did in his health life to allow him to live to be like 70 something years old, but that's pretty phenomenal for that day and age. So obviously he had access to some of the herbal people out there, but just being an herbalist doesn't really, you know, help you over the long haul. It's just temporarily giving you a stay of execution. What really is going to help you is complete and utter cell regeneration, going through this stress of purging those demons and regenerating the cells and fixing the mutations that you have endured over the last 30, 40, 50 years, 20 years. And those mutations stem from political persuasions to, you know, physical duress, to emotional duress, to spiritual duress. And so this is where you're going to start creating your life from those stresses. You're going to start seeing yourself morph to what you were originally intended. And I don't know what normal is. We don't know. I don't know how many years of mutations humanity has undergone. And at this point, we got to understand the laws of the human body before we believe all the stories, because there's a million stories out there from the Bible, from all these different websites, right? But what's really going to be the truth is taking the alignable elements that we know based upon modern science today that has kept us alive for this long, and we apply them in a very strategic way so we can start figuring out who we actually are. Because right now, none of us really know who we are. We're told to be a certain way, but we don't know truly who we are until we allow the right elements to impact us in a positive way. And that is taking the cabbage, the water, the salt, you know, and understanding the elemental composition of the human body. I mean, there is a thing in here. I wanted to put that one graphic of Ed Uthman's, of the different, you know, elements, but okay, let me see if I can find it in here. The diet, mucus, chapter 5, jelly tips. Oh, it's probably over here. Okay. Oh, it's in here somewhere. But it had a graph where it shows the elemental composition of the human body, where oxygen was the most abundant, and then tungsten was the least abundant that your body needs. And then salt was like the ninth element. And then the balancing force of salt was the water. Then you had the potassium and the magnesium, which those are electrolytes, right? Then you have all the different trace minerals. They're like less than 1% or less than that, you know? And there's like uranium and mercury and barium. So those heavy metals, your body does need, but if you follow the laws of your immune system, your body will filter out the excess heavy metals that your body's exposed to, like fluoride, but your body needs a little bit of fluorine, okay? So once you adhere to the laws of your immune system, then you'll be able to filter out the excess that your body doesn't need and then absorb what your body does need. And that's how you're able to then get a final balance of your body internally. And drinking my drink is always going to allow you that internal balance. But you still, since you're so way behind the 8 ball, you got to get rid of all those excess elements that your body doesn't need, as well as the parasites, as well as any other foreign objects that you are harboring, you've been harboring in your body for years and years and years. It's causing your mutations. So this is now finally, we're finally at this point, this turning point. And this is going to give you the option. You can follow the crowd and follow them over the cliff, or you can say, hey, you know what? Jillian learned from her predecessors. She learned from her parents. She learned from her sisters. She learned from everyone around her what not to do and what to do. And she created something and created a strategy. And she made you understand what to expect so you don't get scared, because everything is about context. Everything is about context. Because you can have one action and then you have 50 million stories around those actions. And if you don't know the right context or the right laws, you'll believe whatever stories that are out there. So that is why you must understand that everything in the universe is made up of elements and your body is made up of elements. And there's a specific balance that your body has. And what you have to do to keep that balance, and then also what you have to do to understand your anatomy and your physiology and your laws of your immune system. And this adheres to the laws of the immune system and explains to you what you should and should not do. The antibiotic lifestyle. I talk about CBD oil. Well, lightly. I lightly touch upon, someone that is infertile most likely is a high functioning immune system, or they're attacked by, biotech, one of the two. But it's all about context again. All right. Anyways, my book launch. Wow. So I'm very excited, and it was a little bit nerve-wracking because I'm like, oh my God, this is such a big day, and I didn't really have anything prepared or whatever, and I'm just like, okay. But I just want you guys to know that I'm on your side all the time, and whatever I can do to help you out within reason, absolutely. And if there are specific things that you're dealing with that you want me to answer, you can send a question through my private messenger and I can talk about it on Facebook Live. But I plan to do a video every single day. So if I do get somebody asking a question and I'm going to cover this topic, then I'll cover that too. Okay? But this is what we need to do to wake up everybody, and then use this as your guide. Like, really. So, all right. I'm going to go because it's 10 o'clock. My husband's leaving in a couple hours and I want to spend some time with him. But I appreciate you guys. I love you all. You guys have been amazing, and we're on to some really awesome things. So, yeah. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Mwah. All right. Bye.